welcome back to another round of Play Action Fantasy Football. This is Jonathan here. This is week 2. We're looking at the start sits for the running backs today. This is the very first week I'm doing start sits, so it's kind of exciting for me. I'm excited to get my picks out there, so let's go ahead and start here. We got Thursday night football. We got Vikings at the Eagles. Looking at this one, running back, I got Alexander Madison starting. I think that's a pretty easy one looking at Ty Chandler and Myles Gaskin behind him. They might get a little bit of carries here and there, but Alexander Madison is going to be leading that. So it's safe to assume he's definitely going to be getting the points this week for the running backs from Minnesota. So start that guy. I would not start Ty Chandler and Myles Gaskin if you do have that opportunity. Going to the Eagles running backs, we're looking at DeAndre Swift, definitely a start. After Gainwell's injury, there's nothing holding him back, really. So he's going to be going in, getting some points against the Vikings defense. Definitely want to start DeAndre Swift and sit Kenneth Gainwell. Moving on to Sunday games, we got first up Ravens at Bengals, 1 o'clock. J.K. Dobbins running back situation there in Baltimore is kind of sticky. Gus Edwards and Justice Hill are right behind him. Justice Hill put up good numbers last week. However, Gus Edwards is considered the lead back, but they both will be getting carries, so I would not want to start either of them this week. I want to sit Gus Edwards and Hill just for the fact they're splitting it. They're going to want to try to throw the ball. I know Andrews is out, but do not expect Edwards or Hill to have a great game at the Bengals. Bengals running back Joe Mixon, I think, is an easy start. He gets a lot of carries. I think it's going to increase this week. Last week he had 13 carries for 56 yards and 3 catches, no touchdowns. I think he will find the end zone this week. They're at home against the Ravens, so definitely start him. He's going to get you points. And as far as the backups go for Cincinnati, not too worried about them. They got Evans and Brown. They might get a couple carries, but they're not going to be taking anything away from Mixon, so don't worry about that. Next game up, we got the Seahawks at the Lions. Looking at the running backs for Seahawks, they're starting to building their running backs up, but I got to go with Kenneth Walker as a start, and then you're not going to want to start Charbonnet. Kenneth Walker, he got 12 attempts last week. Charbonnet only had 3, so Kenneth Walker takes a majority of the snaps, so it's kind of hard to argue with this one. Kenneth Walker's a start and sit Charbonnet. When it comes to the Lions running backs, it's way different. We got David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs. They're both going to be a start this week in my books. Last week against the Chiefs, they surprised everybody. So I think they can have a solid year, and that starts with week 2. So expect Montgomery to get a majority of the carries. Obviously, you want Montgomery over Gibbs. However, they're both going to get you fantasy points. They both get carries. Both have the ability to rush the ball very well and also catch the ball and get you points through the air. So take them both, start them, and they will get you points. Next game up, we got the Colts at the Texans. Looking at the running backs for the Colts, they got Deion Jackson, Zach Moss. Looking at this one, it's a tough one. Neither of them impressed me very much. However, Deion Jackson, he's got some skills. So I would start Deion Jackson against the Texans defense who gave up 110 rushing yards last week. It's likely that they could give over 100 again. So give it to Deion Jackson, get him the yards. And then Zach Moss, on the other hand, he's not getting carries like Deion Jackson is, and he lacks a lot of the elusiveness that Deion Jackson has, which really separates them, is the reason why Deion Jackson's the lead role. So no question there, start Deion Jackson, sit Zach Moss. And then on the flip side, looking at the Texans running backs, we're looking at Pierce and Singletary. Both very good running backs, obviously. Both known in the NFL as solid running backs. So Dameon Pierce and Singletary, I think you should start them both. Pierce over Singletary, clearly. Pierce gets the leading role, gets a majority of the carries, and in my opinion, I think Pierce has a lot more elusiveness just like we talked about Deion Jackson and Zach Moss. The difference in this case, though, is Singletary can put up points with a limited amount of carries. He's elusive as well. So I would start them both. Maybe Singletary at a flex, Pierce at a RB2, and you will be all set there. Moving on, we are going on to the Bears at Buccaneers. Here we got Khalil Herbert for the Bears. I always struggle saying his name. I don't know why. And Deontay Foreman. Looking at this one, I think Herbert's an easy start. Looking at Deontay Foreman, I want to sit him. I've always liked Deontay Foreman. He's a strong back. He can get you a touchdown maybe, but it's a very hit or miss. Khalil Herbert on the other side has a lot more plus side to him. He's a lot more athletic. He can get outside, catch the ball from Fields if Fields isn't running the ball. And so, yeah, I think Herbert's a good start this week. Don't expect anything crazy from him, but he's a good start. Deontay Foreman, on the other hand, definitely a sit. Not going to get a lot of carries. But you never know at the same time, like I said, with Deontay Foreman. There is a chance he could do something, I'll admit that, but I would definitely sit him this week. And we'll just have to go from there with him. And as far as the Buccaneers running backs goes, they got Rachaad White, Sean Tucker, and Chase Edmonds. So looking at this one, it's pretty simple to me again. Rachaad White's a dog. He's going to get points, especially with the offense that Tampa Bay's running. They got Baker Mayfield as their quarterback. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin are going to get a lot of attention. And it's going to leave a lot of space for Rachaad White to get his points. So definitely look for Rachaad White this week. He's going to get you some points, and he's a start. On the other hand, Sean Tucker, Chase Edmonds, if you do have them, do not start them. Moving on to the next one, we got the Chiefs at the Jaguars. Looking at the running backs here, Pacheco and McKinnon for the Chiefs. Another kind of simple one for me. Others might not think so. I think Pacheco's an easy start this week. We're shown little clips last week of what he can do, and last year he had a good year. At Jacksonville, they do have a decent run defense, pretty good run defense, but it's going to leave it open for Pacheco to catch passes, and he's going to get a majority of the carries. So once again, Pacheco, start him. McKinnon on the flip side, I would not start him. I don't think he's going to get a lot of attention from Mahomes as far as passing. So that's the only thing that would make me want to start him. So I do not think he's a good start this week. Jaguars, we got Travis Etienne and Tanks Bigsby. Now with this one, Travis Etienne is another very safe bet. He had a very good last week. I think that he can definitely put up numbers this week against the Chiefs defense, who was really struggling last week. Maybe it's just a 1 week fluke, but I don't think the Chiefs defense is quite what it was. So look for Travis Etienne to have a very good week. And if he's going to have a very good week, I will tell you now, Tank Bigsby will not have a very big week, especially with all the weapons there in Jacksonville, from Calvin Ridley to Zay Jones to Christian Kirk, you name it. So definitely start Travis Etienne, sit Tank Bigsby. Moving on to the next game, we got Green Bay Packers at Atlanta Falcons. This is a tough one. We got a lot of good running backs on both these teams. We got questionable Aaron Jones. We're not too sure if he's going to play yet with his injury last week. And then we got A.J. Dillon for the Packers as well. We're going to start both of those guys. I think both of those guys are a start. Now, obviously, Aaron Jones, if he's not playing, A.J. Dillon's going to get a lot of carries, and he's going to look very well. If Aaron Jones is playing, then I look for Aaron Jones to put up a lot of good points, but A.J. Dillon will still get those points, I think, against Atlanta, who gave 154 yards up last week on the ground to Carolina. So with that one, like I said, start them both. As far as Atlanta Falcons running backs goes, they got good running backs as well. So they got Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. Last week, Bijan Robinson and Algier showed up. Algier really showed up. That man had 75 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns rushing. And then Bijan Robinson had 56 rushing yards, no touchdowns, even though Robinson is looking like the lead back there at rookie. So looking at this, I got to go with Algier and Robinson, both start. And they're both going to have a good week against the Packers. Gave up 122 rushing yards last week. The Packers defense did. So look for Algier and Robinson to definitely get those points. And I think Robinson is going to make his statement, get in the end zone. So lean towards Robinson, although Algier kind of led the pack last week. Moving on to the next game, we got the Raiders at the Bills. Running backs for the Raiders, we got Josh Jacobs and Zamir White. Josh Jacobs, another start. He had a good week last week. I think he's going to keep it up at the Bills, who kind of struggled, obviously, against the Jets on Monday. So Josh Jacobs, he's going to catch some passes from Garoppolo, who I don't have a lot of faith in, but he's going to catch some passes, going to run the ball a lot, get a lot of carries. Zamir White, on the other hand, is going to be playing his role. He's going to be playing right behind Jacobs, just kind of, filling in when he needs to. So don't start White, start Jacobs. When it comes to the Bills, I like James Cook a lot. I think he's going to get a lot of points here from Josh Allen throwing him the ball, and the Bills like to give him the ball. So he's going to be a start this week. Damian Harris, on the other hand, he's not going to be a start this week. The Bills didn't really use him much last week. Cook is definitely the head of that offense, or I shouldn't say that offense, but that backfield. And so definitely start Cook, sit Harris. Moving on to the next one, we got Chargers at Titans. Obviously, Eckler, he's going to be a start. I don't care what we're talking about. We're starting him. I'm not talking about that much. Moving on to Joshua Kelly, his back behind him. Joshua Kelly, he put up a good numbers last week, and I think it's going to continue against the Titans, who they're not very impressive on defense. Kelly's going to get points there in the second row. Titans running backs, we're looking at Derrick Henry, and honestly, I don't know who their backup is. I think it's Tyjae Spears, but he is questionable. And other than that, they don't have any other running backs. I think this Chestnut guy, but nothing else is coming out of the running back situation there in Tennessee besides Derrick Henry. So at this point, you have to start Derrick Henry. I don't think it was ever a question anyways, but to be clear, you want to start Derrick Henry. Moving on to the next game, we got the 49ers at the Rams. Oh boy. We're going to start McCaffrey. That's another one we don't have to talk about a lot. You already know you're going to start McCaffrey. When it comes to Mitchell, though, I would not start him. The Rams defense looked very good last week at Pittsburgh. So this week, do not start Mitchell. For the Rams side of things, looking at those running backs, we got Akers and Williams. Neither of them impressed me very much. I definitely think against a 49ers defense who's very good, they're not going to do very well. 49ers are probably going to dominate that game, so do not start Akers or Williams. Moving on to the Giants at Cardinals, we got Saquon Barkley and Matt Breida for the Giants. Barkley's another easy start. He's the lead running back there in New York. Had a good week last week, nothing crazy, but expect him to do a lot better against the Cardinals than he did against Dallas, because Dallas obviously shut them out. It was 40-0. Not a very good game to watch, but Barkley is very promising, going to put up good numbers against the Cardinals, and it's going to take away a lot from Matt Breida. Matt Breida is not going to play a whole lot, so don't even think about even picking him. If he's on your team, you might want to drop him. Cardinals, we're talking about. Running backs, James Conner, you want to start him. I like James Conner a lot. Even when he was in Pittsburgh, he's always been a solid running back. He's going to get you points, especially with the Cardinals struggling a little bit with their identity and everything there in Arizona with the offense. I think Conner's going to step up a little bit and definitely get you some points. Giants defense, not very impressive either, so Conner's going to get the points, and Ingram behind him is going to be sitting on the bench a lot, not playing a lot. So you want to start Connor, sit Ingram. Moving on to the next one, we got the Jets at the Cowboys. Two very cool teams to watch last week. I think the Jets this week with their running back situation, looking at Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook, both are very good running backs. But the Jets like Breece Hall, and Breece Hall is young and fresh. He's a start. You want Breece Hall starting. He's going to get you points for sure, especially with Aaron Rodgers being out now. They do not rely on Zach Wilson on that offense. So Breece Hall is going to step up, get a lot of points. Dalvin Cook, on the other hand, he might get a little bit more carries without Aaron Rodgers playing and stuff like that. But this week at the Cowboys, who have a good defense, don't start the running back number 2. So it's going to be a sit for Cook this week. Moving on to the Cowboys, looking at their running backs, we're not looking at much. I mean, Tony Pollard is about all they have. So Tony Pollard's a start. They do have guys by the name of Rico Dowdle and Deuce Vaughn, but they're not going to be getting you points like Tony Pollard. So don't even think about those guys. I know you probably don't even have them on your team. I can almost guarantee you don't have them on your team. So don't worry about it. Start Tony Pollard. Going on to the next game, we are looking at the Commanders at the Broncos. Running back situation for the Commanders is looking pretty good. Brian Robinson, he's looking like a stud. I want to start him. I like Antonio Gibson, but with Brian Robinson taking those carries away from him, and he's showing that he can catch passes as well. So it's kind of taken away from Gibson's abilities. And so I would sit Gibson this week, start Brian Robinson, and that's that. Broncos, we got Javonte Williams and Pirine. I would definitely want to start Javonte Williams and leave Pirine for all the adults that still ride the short bus. Moving on to the next game, we got the Dolphins at the Patriots. Running back, we're looking at Mostert and Ahmed. I think Mostert is an easy start again. He looked like a monster last week. He's going to get points against this Patriots defense, who isn't bad, and it is in New England, but I think Mostert is still a solid start. It's who the Dolphins like to go to. Easy start there. Ahmed, on the other hand, is not the Dolphins' go-to, so you do not want to start that man. Patriots running backs, Stevenson and Zeke. Stevenson, everybody's going to say start him. Obviously, you want to start him. But Zeke, on the other hand, I'm going to say you want to start him. That might be a controversial thing. I think that Zeke this week is going to show up against the Dolphins' D because the Dolphins' D is just straight up terrible. So definitely, I think Zeke can have a good week this week. Definitely could get you points there at your flex. Maybe not at running back 1 or 2, but definitely as a flex. Stevenson, get him there RB1 or RB2. Moving on to the next one, we got the Saints at the Panthers. We got Williams and Merritt, Jamal Williams and Merritt. I think that Williams is a for sure start. He's been getting carries way over Merritt. I mean, Merritt's barely touching the ball. Jamal Williams, he didn't get a ton of yards and pass catches and stuff last week. However, this week, coming up against the Panthers, who's really struggled, I think that Williams will definitely get some points there for the Saints before Alvin Kamara comes back. Panthers running backs, we got Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard. Both very good running backs. However, Sanders, he's catching the ball from Bryce Young. He's getting out there. He's a little more flexible than Chuba Hubbard, who's a bigger guy, pounds it in there. Sanders can definitely be a better option in a PPR league. So we're going to start Sanders, sit Chuba Hubbard, and roll with that one. The last Monday night game, we got the Browns at the Steelers. The big one of them all. Not very hard to say. You want to start Nick Chubb, best running back in the league. You have to start him. He might not catch 8 passes a game, but guess what? He's guaranteed 100 rushing yards a game. So start Nick Chubb, and you will not be sad. Jerome Ford, on the other hand, you might be sad if you start him. If you have him in your league, don't start him. The Steelers, Najee Harris is what we're looking at here. They do also have Jaylen Warren. However, Najee Harris is the big back out of that backfield, and he's a good big back. So I think Najee Harris is a good start this week. Browns are notorious for giving up yards and points to running backs on the other team. They didn't do it in the first game, but it might be coming in the second. So Najee Harris is a good start this week. Get him in there in your fantasy. And then don't even worry about Jaylen Warren. He will not be getting touches like Najee Harris, so definitely sit Jaylen Warren. Don't even worry about that guy. And that will be it for the running backs this week in week 2. And we will get a move onto the tight ends. Start sit week 2. We got Thursday night football, Minnesota at Philadelphia. You want to start TJ Hawkinson. Had a good week last week. He's a dominant player. You want to start TJ Hawkinson. On the flip side, Dallas Goedert is not going to be, or Goddard, however you want to say it. I say Goedert. Sounds cooler. Goedert. But he's not going to be a start this week for me. I don't think that Jalen Hurts is going to be finding him too much, and Minnesota's defense will be able to shut him down this week. Going on to the next one, we got Baltimore at Cincinnati on Sunday. Mark Andrews is a big Q, a big question mark. We don't know if he's playing or not, but if he is, I look forward to him catching passes, whether he's a little shooken up or not. Lamar Jackson has to throw him the ball. Gonna have to find him at some point in time and get you some points. Irv Smith for the Bengals. I don't see him putting up points this week. He's the starting tight end for the Bengals. Bengals has so many offensive weapons, as you guys know. So Irv Smith is not going to be a start this week. Going on to the Seattle Seahawks at Detroit Lions. We have Noah Fant and Will Disley. They both split the tight end position there in Seattle. Noah Fant, he kind of leads it a little bit. However, neither of them are very impressive. I wouldn't want to start either of them against this Lions defense. So you want to sit both of them. When it comes to Detroit, Sam Laporta, he's a dog. You want to start him. He's going to get passes. And I believe he's only going to get better and better throughout the season. So definitely want to start him at home against Seattle. Moving on the next game, we got Indianapolis at Texans. I would definitely not start Granson this week. I know he might have looked good last week. He did all right. However, this week against Houston's defense, do not start Granson. He's not going to be getting a tons of passes from Richardson. Don't start him. Moving on to Texans, Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz, he's a veteran. I mean, he does what he does. C.J. Stroud is probably going to be able to find him against this Colts defense, who has not been a very good pass defense so far. So look for Dalton Schultz to get the ball. Moving on next, we got the Bears at Buccaneers. Cole Kmet, how I commit your mother. I think Cole Kmet's a start. Definitely get him in there. Justin Fields is going to find him against Buccaneers. It might be a high-scoring game, but for Cade Otton, tight end for the Buccaneers, you don't want to play him. Rashad White, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Baker Mayfield, they're taking over that game. Cade Otton will not be getting the ball very much, so you definitely do not want to start Cade Otton if you were thinking about it. Going on to the Chiefs at Jaguars. Kind of a tough one. We'll see how it plays out. Travis Kelce, not too sure if he's going to be playing yet or not. Obviously, if he's playing, he's a guaranteed lock. You want to start him. And if he is playing, you might not want to start Noah Gray. I have Noah Gray as a start this week, but that is if Kelce does not play. So if Kelce's not playing, you want to start Gray. He's gonna get catches. I mean, the tight end position there in Kansas City is very valuable, and Patrick Mahomes knows how to find them. So look for Noah Gray if Kelce doesn't play. If Kelce's playing, obviously start him. Evan Ingram for Jacksonville. I like this man. He was good in New York. He's going to be good in Jacksonville. He has a better quarterback in Jacksonville. He has a little bit of competition at wide receiver, but look for Ingram to get a lot of points against this Kansas City defense, who's struggling, especially against the pass. Green Bay at Atlanta Falcons. You got Robert Tonyan and Kyle Pitts for each of the teams. Tonyan for the Packers, Pitts for Falcons. Tonyan is not a start this week. I like the man, but this week I would not want him in my fantasy. It's not looking like Jordan Love and him have too much of a connection. So I would sit Tonyan this week and look at another tight end. When it comes to the Falcons, Kyle Pitts, another talented receiver tight end. However, this week against the Packers, I do not think Pitts is going to get a good amount of targets from Ritter, and it's not going to be a very good week for him. So don't start Pitts this week, and you should be good. Moving on to the next one, we got Raiders at Buffalo. It's a good mix of tight ends. However, Austin Hooper for the Raiders is cool for the Raiders, but not cool for your fantasy. I don't see him getting many points. He might get lucky and catch a touchdown or a pass or two, but he's not going to get anything crazy for your fantasy. So I would definitely sit him this week at Buffalo. However, for Buffalo, they got Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid. It's looking very good for Buffalo's tight ends. I think both of them are a start this week. You never know which one Josh Allen's going to hit. However, they're both very talented. Knox has been the veteran role, whereas Kincaid is a little bit younger, a lot younger, and he's just getting a feel for the NFL. So he's a talented tight end. However, Knox is the veteran. He knows how to get the ball. So I lean towards Knox this week. Kincaid can definitely put up points as well. So if he's your tight end, I would not feel disconfident in starting Kincaid this week. Next up, we got the Chargers at Tennessee Titans. I'm looking green on both of these. We want to start both of these guys. We got Gerald Everett for the Chargers, and then we got the Titans, Okonkwo. I think that Everett, he's going to be getting a majority of those targets. I know Palmer, he had a decent, Parham. He had a good amount of catches last week, did good. He's a good tight end, but Gerald Everett is their go-to. It's Justin Herbert's go-to. He's going to show up and show out this week against Tennessee's defense for sure. I think he's a strong start at tight end. And for Tennessee, Okonkwo, I struggled with this one. He's barely a start for me. However, the Chargers almost gave up 500 passing yards to the Miami Dolphins, who have probably a better passing offense than the Titans. However, I do see Okonkwo getting points, maybe getting in the end zone, but definitely getting those receptions for you in a PPR league. Moving on to the next one, we got San Fran at the LA Rams. It's going to be a good game. Tight end-wise, George Kittle's a dog, but you're not going to want him to play this week. LA Rams have a very solid defense. George Kittle's a very solid tight end, but this week I don't like the matchup. I don't see him exceeding any expectations, so definitely I would sit him this week and try to find another tight end like Tyler Higbee. Tyler Higbee this week, 49ers do have a good defense, don't get me wrong. But the LA Rams do not have many other weapons like San Francisco does. San Francisco can go to other guys besides Kittle. LA Rams do not have as much of that option. So they're going to be looking at Higbee quite a bit. So look for Higbee as a start for sure. If nobody has him in your league, pick him up. They should already. But definitely get him a start. He's going to get you some points. Moving on to the next one, we got New York Giants at the Arizona Cardinals. We're looking at Darren Waller, Zach Ertz, and Trey McBride here. Darren Waller for the Giants, easy start. He's a beast. He's proven it before. Danny Dimes throwing him the ball. Not bad. I can't say that it's great, but it's not like he has Colt McCoy throwing him the ball. He's going to be doing good. Darren Waller's going to get you points. So you want to start Darren Waller this week, especially against Arizona's defense. And then as far as Arizona's tight ends, Zach Ertz, Trey McBride, neither of them are very impressive, mainly because both of them play a decent amount. Zach Ertz definitely plays a little more. He's a starter. However, neither of them have a significant role in that offense, and they both interchange. So I wouldn't want to start either of them this week, and definitely would like to sit both of them. Next game up, we got the New York Giants at Dallas Cowboys. Both had very interesting games last week. I think both are going to step down from that kind of perspective as far as the tight ends. They got Tyler Conklin for the Jets, Jake Ferguson for the Dallas Cowboys, and neither of them are going to have a very good game. Tyler Conklin is never very promising in my eyes. I think he's the Jets starting tight end, and he's not going to get points for much. I can't swear, so I'll say for much. Jake Ferguson, on the other hand, he's a little more talented, drafted last year. However, Dak Prescott is not going to be finding this guy a whole lot, so you definitely want to sit him. Don't put him in your starting lineup. Washington Commanders at Denver Broncos. I'm looking forward to that game. I'm not going to lie. We got Logan Thomas, tight end, Washington, and we got Greg Dulcich, Adam Trautman for the Denver Broncos. Logan Thomas, easy start. You want him playing. Sam Howell is a good quarterback. I don't care what anybody says. Commanders might not be great, but Logan Thomas and Sam Howell are, and he's going to be finding him a whole bunch. Greg Dulcich, Adam Trautman. That's a tough one, guys. They're both medium range players. Neither of them are very scary or very good. They're no scary Terrys, but Dulcich is the starter, and I would sit both of them. You don't want neither of them playing. They're both going to be catching passes. They might both get 3 points. You don't want that as your starting tight end. So stay away from those guys, okay? You hear me? Stay away from them. Dolphins at Patriots. We got Durham Smith for the Dolphins, and we got Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki for the Patriots. Smith, not a big name guy. The Dolphins have a lot of weapons. You're going to want to sit that guy. You don't want to play him. And I hope you don't have him on your team. It would be a waste of a roster spot. Patriots, Hunter Henry, beast. You're going to want to start him. He had an awesome week last week. He was actually the number 1 in fantasy points. So definitely start Hunter Henry and look for him to get you points. I wish I could say Mike Gesicki, but there's only room for so many people. And that offense has good weapons. So they're not going to use Mike Gesicki quite as much. But he's a good backup for Hunter Henry if he gets hurt. So sit Mike Gesicki if you do have him. And, yeah. Moving on to Monday Night Football. We have Juwan Johnson and Hayden Hurst. Saints, Juwan Johnson, and Carolina, Hayden Hurst. Last week, Hayden Hurst had a great game. Hayden Hurst, I think, was second or third highest tight end points in fantasy. So look for Hayden Hurst to have a good week against the Saints. Saints have a good defense, don't get me wrong, but Carolina does not have a lot of offensive weapons, and so they're going to be leaning on Hurst a little bit, even though he's a tight end. So look for him to get you points. Juwan Johnson for the Saints, I do not look for him to get you points whatsoever. That's another team with a lot of weapons and not a great offense, if you ask me. So they have a lot of other weapons they can go to. Juwan Johnson is not going to be one of them, especially in Carolina, so stay away from him. Moving on to the Monday night game, we have the Browns at the Steelers. Pat Freiermuth is questionable. So with that being said, I'm going to say Freiermuth, you don't want to start whether he is playing or not. If he is shooken up, I wouldn't want him on my team, especially not against a Browns defense like this and not with Kenny Pickett playing the way he is. So you're going to want to sit Pat Freiermuth this week. And for the Browns, David Njoku, Harrison Bryant, they're 2 tight ends. I think David Njoku is going to come back and have a really good week. He didn't have a great week first week. Harrison Bryant did have a touchdown, played pretty well, nothing extravagant, but I do want to sit Bryant this week. He had a good week last week. I think it's this week's turn for Njoku to pop up. Njoku's the number 1, the bigger guy. Everybody knows him. So I think Njoku is going to have a big week this week. Harrison Bryant is going to take a little slower step than he did last week. And that wraps it up for this week's running backs and tight ends with me, Jonathan, Play Action Fantasy Football. It was a lot of good fun here. I hope you guys enjoyed. So go subscribe, like, comment, let us know what you guys think. We always appreciate your guys' feedback and look forward to hearing from it. So go do that and have a great fantasy weekend. I hope you guys the best. I hope you guys got something out of this. But John is going to be out of here. Have a good night. Deuces.